everyone, so welcome to today's video. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to do another one brand video. This is going to be on a brand that is actually very new. It's called Pretty Smart. It's available in store at Walmart, walmart.com, and also on the Pretty Smart website. Everything from this line is $10 or less, which is great. Super affordable, easily accessible. You can order online or get them in store as well. The founder of this line is also the one that's behind the Balm Cosmetics. I have used the Balm Cosmetics before many years past. I've always enjoyed their formulas, especially their Mary Lou Luminizer. I love their retro packaging and just the pictures. Everything about the packaging was just kind of old school, very kind of nostalgic. So it's fun to see that founder is coming out with something that's much more affordable. So I picked up enough products to kind of get a feel for the brand, do a full face start to finish, give you my thoughts along the way. We are going to get started on a full face of Pretty Smart products. I'm going to start with a product that I typically use towards the end of my makeup routine, and I'm going to start with that first. This is the Pretty Smart Over Under Priming and Setting Spray. So this is a mist that you can apply before and after. You can also use it if you'd like between the layers of foundation, concealer products, powders, if that's what you like to do. That sort of sandwich technique, you can definitely do that. I typically only use setting sprays at the very end, and I'm actually excited to see what the difference is going to be using this first. I do have another primer. Of course, we're going to layer that on top of this, but we're going to start with this setting spray, which is also a vegan formula. I will insert some up-close shots throughout the video so you can see up close the font, the labels, the product packaging, and just the kind of cutesy vibes that I'm getting from their product packaging and the little eyeglasses on the products. You will see it up close. It's really cute. But this is a vegan setting spray and priming mist. So we're going to give it a good shake and we're going to spray and see if this helps with longevity. I'm going to give it a good fan so it can dry, and the mist is very, very fine, which I like. I love when sprayers have a good spray component because that is, I think, super important. Not just the formula of the spray itself, but the actual spray. It's nice, it's thin, it's a nice even mist, so I did a couple little spritz and I feel like it covered my face entirely. It does smell very much like a spa. On the ingredient list, it's lavender oil. There's also tremolo mushrooms, there's glycerin in here. So a lot of good sort of skincare additives to this, which is great. I always enjoy having skincare as a bonus in my products, but just wanted to call that out that there is a bit of a fragrance to this product. It's not offensive. It's very sort of pleasant. It's soft. It's very kind of fresh and very spa-like. I think that that's a very accurate description, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the lavender that's in here. Lavender is very calming to the skin, so I enjoy the smell of the setting spray. I will come back to this at the end and set everything, and then we'll kind of check back with a wear test and see if this actually did anything. I always enjoy using a pore diffusing primer because I do have larger pores, especially my T-zone, because I do have oily skin. Anytime I do these one brand videos and I see that there's a pore minimizing or pore diffusing primer, I always pick it up, and this brand is no exception. They have the diffusing primer. Again, it's another vegan formula, and it says apply to clean skin before makeup. I like the product packaging, the tubes. You will see a lot of their products in this component, and I like it. It's very inexpensive, which helps keep the cost down as far as the price itself when you buy the product. So I can see why they chose this type of packaging, but I also like the colors too. Just a quick little shout out to the colors. I have not taken the seals off of things, so I'm going to use my little tweezers, pull the seals off, and get to applying. So I'm going to blend this in with my fingers, and I like the consistency. It's a little bit thinner, more runny, but I do feel it actually, to me, it feels a bit more moisturizing. I'm not sure if it's combined with that setting spray, with those moisturizing ingredients like the glycerin that's in the spray, but it doesn't feel like the typical silicone-based primers, which is very interesting. So we'll see what this looks like underneath the foundation and see if it actually diffuses the pores, which is something that I look for in primers. That's important for me. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. On the ingredient list on the back, this primer contains sunflower seed oil. It's got squalene, which is hydrating as well. It's got glycerin, another hydrating property to it, dimethicone, which helps give it a slip. It's also listed with fragrance. It's towards the very end, so very minimal, but it's there. So I'm going to call that out in case you're curious about the fragrance in the formulas. I just want to let you know that there is a little bit of fragrance in that. And I don't really smell too much of it. It smells very clean, very, very minimal. So I do like that. It's the fragrance level is to a minimum, which is I think, pretty great. It's not super intense. So let's go in with some foundation. I picked up the Instant Chemistry Medium Coverage Foundation. And the little glasses is so cute on the component. Again, it's that same sort of plastic tube component as the primer. This is a medium coverage foundation. I chose the shade 303 Light Neutral. And here's a look at the consistency of this foundation in case you're curious. It's not super runny, but it's also not thick at all. And I'm going to use my damp beauty sponge. Actually, that may not be too bad. I was concerned because I felt like the shade matching was a little bit challenging for me online. This does look a little darker in person than it did in the photos. So we will see, but I do feel like I'm getting some really nice coverage. I would say that's a good solid medium. And it's blending beautifully right over the primer and the setting mist. And I'll do half of my face with the sponge, and then we'll compare both sides and see what the coverage is like and what this looks like up close. This is the side with the foundation applied, and here is my bare skin with just setting spray and primer. I can actually see quite a bit of a difference. It's a lot more even, a lot better as far as the look of the skin itself. I do really like how this is looking. Up close, I do feel like it has a bit of a sheen to it. There's no shimmer in this, but I feel like there is just a touch of radiance that comes from this. More, I would say dewy, not quite satin or matte, which is my personal preference. But this looks really pretty, very skin-like and very natural. There's nothing crazy about the finish. I feel like with a little bit of setting powder, it's gonna be fine. So this is, again, the side with the foundation and then nothing. We do need to do a little bit of concealer before moving on to brows. They have the Conceal and Appeal Concealer. I chose Light Neutral 203. And again, this does look darker in person. So if you like to shop your cosmetics online, you may want to compare some photos, maybe go into your local Walmart and see if this line is there and check it out in person because it's a little bit tricky. This does look a little darker than I personally prefer, and it's that typical doe foot applicator as we've come to expect with a lot of concealers these days. So I'm going to start with a dot in the center or inner part of my eye and then a dot right out here. And then we're just going to give it a blend with the same damp beauty sponge. This is one from Real Techniques, by the way. It's got really good coverage. I would say it's a good medium coverage. I do have a little bit of discoloration here that I could layer some more and kind of see if I can build that. Actually, let's try that out now. But I can also use a corrector next time over those areas and then go in with the concealer. So I'm not mad at this formula whatsoever, and the shade match is pretty decent. Moving on to the next parts of my routine, I do want to set my concealer because I can see that it's already starting to crease just because that consistency is a little bit more emollient, a little bit more hydrating, so it does need to be set for me personally. And I picked up the all-in-one face palette. So this is a trio of products. I love a good face palette because it can streamline the process. It can make my routine go by much faster, and it takes care of so many steps in one. And finding something like this at the drugstore at the price point of this brand is even better. So this palette that I chose was 060. It has the setting powder, a talc-free bronzer, and a blush. I'm going to use an e.l.f. Flawless Concealer brush. It looks like this, but I think it's going to be actually pretty good for a setting powder. So I'm going to use that and just kind of dab that right on top of the concealer. That concealer still feels a little bit emollient. I don't know if it's because of the primer that's still on my finger. So I'm going to go back in with more of that setting powder on the brush and just press and pack that on. With an e.l.f. pointed powder brush, I'm going to take that same setting powder and I'm going to lightly tap over the T-zone, and I'm going to set the rest of my face since I am going to be using the powder, blush, and bronzer. I want to go ahead and set the rest of my face. And looking up close, I do like the way this is all looking. I will say the setting powder is very, very thin. It almost looks like I didn't even put anything down, which is a good thing. It doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look powdery or cakey. It goes on very light, and maybe it's because of the brush that's a little bit more fluffy. This is super soft, by the way, this e.l.f. brush. But it doesn't look like I put much of anything down. Moving on to brows. I picked up a tinted brow gel. You've Got Brow Gel in number 099 Deep Brown. This was the shade option that I felt like would match my natural hair. They don't have any other brow products. This is it. So I'm going to show you what this looks like, but I will have to kind of supplement in a brow pen because I typically use that every day anyways. I don't always just use a tinted brow gel. So I want to show you up close. You will see how small this applicator is. It reminds me a lot of the Gimme Brow from Benefit with that really tiny, small, precise little applicator. And I like that. And whoa, that is pigmented. Okay. Wow. I was not expecting that. Honestly, do you see what that just did? Okay, so maybe you should kind of tread softly, maybe possibly consider trying a lighter shade than you expect. I was not expecting it to be this intense in pigment. Okay, I definitely got brows now. Let me take a spoolie and try to clean this up a little bit. I may not even need to bring in anything else. That's like a shock to me. I'm gonna clean this up right here. I am back and I realize that the brows are bold. They are, okay, let's talk about this brow gel. I was not prepared for this to be as intense as it was. It's very pigmented. I made a little boo-boo on this side here. So what I did was I took this brush. This is from Real Techniques. It's number 098. It looks like this. It's almost kind of like a transparent handle. I bought these through Ulta. It's a square shape, which I've never used a brush with a square shape, but I used a little bit of leftover foundation and I tried to use that sort of flat square part to clean around the edges underneath because it's such a straight edge. I feel like that's really good for helping around the brows because I did make a mistake. This one is not looking as good. I'm not going to say that's the fault of the product. I think it's just me just going into quick with too much product, thinking that it's going to be more sheer, a little bit lighter, but no, no, no. I do like it. I'm not going to complain about it because that was my own fault where I made a mistake, but wow. Okay, wow. I want to go back into that all-in-one face palette and use that talc-free bronzer, which definitely gives me quite a bit of the balm vibes. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this brand was created by the founder of the Balm Cosmetics, and there was a bronzer, and I think they still make it, the Bahama Mama. That used to be a really good one. And this is definitely giving those vibes. Bahama Mama vibes. And this brush, by the way, I bought a set of brushes from the e.l.f. brand through the Ulta website. I'm going to link it for you. I got so many brushes. And this was one of them. And it's so good. It's so soft. Before going in with a little bit of blush, I will be using the pressed one in that palette. But I did want to shout out another product. They have a liquid lip and cheek. So if you like those products that you can multi-use lip and cheek kind of moment, a monochrome kind of vibe, they do have those, but I will not be using this for my cheeks today because I did the setting powder and the powder bronzer. I do think that stains are probably better suited to go directly on top of foundation before setting it. So I will show you this for the lip product and swatch it for you, but I bought shade Blossom number 63. They also have liquid blushes available and individual blushes if you don't want the palette, but I'm going to use the palette one, and that just looks like a really pretty kind of natural flush kind of pink shade. So we are going to use this today, and the finish is more of a kind of satiny, very much like the old school balm formula. Ooh, that's pretty. It's a nice kind of rosy flush. It's definitely one that has some pigment. Looks like it's a nice buildable formula. It's blending great, no complaints. And I love that sort of satiny, kind of leaning towards the matte side and finish because that's my personal preference. You can add a little bit of glow with a highlighter, which they do have pressed highlighters and liquid highlighters as well. They have so many products, and I didn't buy one of everything because I wanted to tread softly and I wanted to start slow and just see what their formulas are like. But now I do feel like I want to go back and try some other options that I didn't pick up today. Now that I've used all three products from this palette, I do actually enjoy it. I think it's very simple, it's easy, the formulas are no fuss, it's very beginner friendly. Even if you have experience with makeup, I think you will enjoy this formula, and for the price point, I honestly don't have any complaints. The only thing that I will say if I had to kind of nitpick at something is maybe the packaging. It has that cardboard packaging, which is fine, but it's mostly that sort of plastic clear window. I'm not a fan of it because I feel like that's just not as sturdy when it comes to travel or storing in a makeup bag, but because I do house my products in drawers, it's not really that big of an issue, but it's something that I wanted to point out, that sort of plasticky window, it could be improved, but again, for the price point, everything being under $10, you can't really expect, you know, top-notch quality packaging because they're giving you so much for this price point. It's really a minimal thing to complain about, but I just wanted to be honest with you and just tell you what's on my mind about the packaging itself. But the formula is great. I'm excited for this next product. It's actually an eyeshadow primer. I've been wanting to try some affordable ones that are not as expensive as my high-end, my go-tos for these drugstore one brand videos, and they've got a primer. This is the Eyeshadow Primer Elixir, another vegan formula, and it says just to apply before eyeshadow. So I like the sort of squeeze tube component, and I hope, fingers crossed, this prevents creasing for the rest of the day, because I want to see how this works with other brands and also some of their own eyeshadows. So let's apply a little bit of this. I'm going to use a brush just to quickly sweep a very thin layer. So I picked up one of their quads. I'm not sure if this is the color called Celebrity Artist, but it's the quad with Toasty Mauve, Gradient, Bare Brunch, and Mr. Merlot. So it's kind of those kind of blushy tones, some kind of plummy vibes, like a deep color here, a nice pretty champagne-y pink shade, a nice kind of taupe with a little bit of a plummy purpley undertone. So I thought this would be nice for every day, something I could reach for often. They had some warmer options that you could choose from if you like more warm tones, but I just liked the bit of coolness that I'm getting off of this palette. So now that the primer has been on here for just a few seconds, it does feel like it's dried down a little bit more. It did feel a little bit creamy initially, but I feel like we're good to go. So maybe we should try going over it with a little bit of that pressed powder, just to have a little extra insurance to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to go back into that Flawless Concealer brush from e.l.f. and just quickly go right over that primer and set it. Let's start off today's eye look. The eyeshadow palette itself only has one shimmer shade, which is the lightest one. So these sort of midtones and this deep shade are all matte. So I'm going to start off with this one here that has a little bit of a kind of dusty, rosy undertone. And I'm going to use that as my sort of transitional shade. I'm going to go right into my crease with a fluffy crease brush and just go back and forth. Let's go over to the next shade right next to it. This one that has a little bit more of a cooler vibe, kind of like a taupey with a plummy undertone. Same brush. And focus this mostly on the outer part of the eye and then blending it into that rosy shade. It's got a little bit of depth, but it's not too intense. You could definitely deepen things up with the darker shade, but I like how these are nice and buildable. There is a little bit of fallout and kick up when I put my brush into the pan. Something to know in case that bothers you. It's not really an issue to me because I can always just clean that off, but I do want to point that out. And I don't really see any fallout yet, so another bonus. I'm going to go back into that translucent powder to help me clean around the edges, just because I feel like it needs to be a little bit more blended. And I'm going to switch to a smaller crease brush, just real quickly to help kind of diffuse this edge right here. I'm going to take those same two shades and run that on the lower lashes, starting with that rosy shade. And then I'm going to go right over the top with the deeper, more grayish tone. For a little bit more depth and smokiness on the lower lashes, I'm going to go down to that really deep shade here with a small little detail brush like this. And I'm going to apply this directly over the top of what I just did, but I'm not going to go in all the way. I think what I want to do is just go about halfway. So from the outer part, just stopping about midway. And lastly, let's go into that very last shade that has the shimmer and put that onto the lids. I'm going to use an e.l.f. brush. This is an actual eyeshadow brush. And I'm going to pat that on. Whoa, look at that. Really pretty. A nice champagne pink. Nice cool vibes. A little bit of icy kind of champagne color. Really nice. I'm going to take that same lid shade as my brow bone highlight. And also that inner corner highlight as well. I think that shade is so pretty. I'm going to use a little bit of liquid liner. I picked up the Make Yourself at Home Matte Liquid liner. This is in the shade number 106, Tres Marron. I think that's how you say that. And I believe this is going to be just a nice dark brown. It's got a felt tip to it, which helps with a little bit more control. And I'm going to just do a very thin line right across my lash line. And that is very pigmented. Whoa. And that is nearly black. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a dark brown. But it is easy to apply. It's flowing really nicely, the formula, out of the felt tip. It's almost kind of like a marker tip. I do really like that liquid liner. I think that was very easy. It took just a few seconds to get a thin line, and I didn't make any mistakes actually, which is surprising, and I like it. I can see myself definitely using that again. And then to wrap things up for the eyes, I want to use their Success Falsies Mascara. I picked up the shade Black, and they did have a few different options for mascaras. I chose the one that had the smallest brush applicator. There's another one that I was considering buying, but it just looked like the brush would be way too big for my eyes. So I chose the Falsies Mascara, and I'm going to just do 2 coats of this on the top, and I'm also going to use it on my lower lashes. So far, I like how this wand is actually combing through the lashes, but I don't feel like it's giving me a whole ton of length. That is one even coat right there, and then here's nothing. So a little bit of definition, but it's not giving the Falsies vibe yet. We'll see what happens when I layer this up a little bit more. I'm going to let that hang out, and I'm going to do this other side. Let's see, coat number 2. So this is 2 coats and 1 coat. I do think by looking straight into the mirror, I can visually see 2 coats definitely obviously looks better, and you can see that there's something there, but it doesn't give me as thick of a look as I expected or as I was hoping, being that it's called Falsies Mascara. It's not terrible, but it's not my favorite from today's video. It's okay. Pretty Smart also has some bronzing drops. They also have a shade that's kind of like a rose gold. So I picked up the Gold Illuminating Face Drops. This can actually be used, like many products like this on the market, first as a primer underneath your makeup to give a glow. You can mix these into moisturizers, tinted moisturizers, foundations. You can mix this into a blush, anything that you want, as long as you're mixing it into something that's more of a liquid or cream consistency. I chose the gold because it had niacinamide in it, and I like niacinamide in my products, so I thought, why not give it a go? And I also like the tone of this. The rose gold, I wasn't sure how pink and gold it was going to look on the skin, if it's going to be too obvious. We're going to use the gold one as a highlighter on the tops of the cheekbone. And I'm going to use my Real Techniques 242 brush because of that sort of flat paddle shape. It sits right on the tops of the cheekbones perfectly. This is such a good brush for liquids, for creams, for powder highlighter. It just blends beautifully any single product that you use it with. I love this brush. And that is really pretty and soft. It's not over the top. It's not glittery. There's not obvious pieces of glitter particles or shimmer in it. It just looks like one of those formulas that will blend into the skin and just give you that kind of youthful, kind of healthy skin vibes, which I like. And no complaints. It doesn't smell the best. It smells a little odd, but that's fine. No big deal, but that's really pretty. For lip products, I picked up a few. I couldn't decide, so I bought them all. I bought a lip gloss, a lip oil, and a lip and cheek stain. So I talked about that lip and cheek earlier, the Blossom, so I'll show you that. But I also ordered their Lip Fuel, Liquid Lip Fuel Lip Oil in Thrilled. Wow, that's a tongue twister. And that looks like it's going to be a really pretty kind of everyday shade, or at least I think so. And the lip gloss is the Brilliant Lip Gloss in Crescendo, which is a really pretty kind of pinky shade with a nice golden shimmer that runs right through it. So I'm curious to see the level of pigment on this. Let's start with the gloss. This is the Crescendo color. Comes with a typical doe foot. Oh, that's pretty. So here is the Crescendo lip gloss. I do like this formula. It's pretty thin, but it's not too thin that feels more like a slippery kind of lip oil. I do like how it has just a very subtle kind of thickness to it, but it's not overly thick by any means. I like the color. It's a nice kind of pink with a golden sheen to it. And I can see myself using this again. I can see it being a topper to a lipstick. It does have enough color to wear on its own, especially this shade. I think it's really pretty. They do have a lot of options in the gloss formula, but I only chose one just to kind of get a feel for the formula, and I do like it. And I think it's a really pretty nice kind of glossy look to the lips, so yay for that. So let's take this off and let's try the lip oil. I'm excited about this one. Liquid Fuel Lip Oil in number 72 Thrilled. Ooh, that's pretty. A lot more pink than the gloss. And this is the Thrilled Lip Oil. This is much thinner than the lip gloss. It feels like a typical lip oil with a bit more of a slippery kind of feel on the lips. I do like the level of pigment. This is actually one of the more pigmented lip oils that I've used recently. I love this shade. It's definitely one that I can see myself using again. I will say that it does to me, I don't know, what do you think? It looks a little bit more pink on than the outside, right? So this is really the only guide that you have when choosing a color is the actual component. It's just a sticker that's around this like white plastic. So I do feel like it's kind of close, but not exact. So just keep that in mind, but still, in the end, it's a nice formula. I will use it again, definitely. And I love this shade. Next up is that lip stain. This is one that you can use on your lips and your cheek. The shade that I have is Blossom. So I definitely built this up a little bit so you can see this looks a lot more red than I thought it was going to be based off of the way it looked on their website. I am going to blot this off. The formula is extremely thin, very water-like consistency. The actual applicator has quite a bit of flexibility, so it kind of hugs the shape of your lips, and it's easy to move and navigate the product on your lips. I also like how the applicator is rounded, the tip of it, so you can really use that and get around the edge of your lip line. For me personally, that's a huge deal for me because I don't want to mess up a lip stain because these are going to be on for an extended period of time. It's not like wiping off a lip liner and starting over. It does seem to have dried down and it feels like I'm not even wearing anything. I'm glad that I didn't use this on my cheeks because this tone is just not a color that I normally wear on my cheeks. And it's personally a little too red for me. So what I ended up doing off camera, it was a mess. I tried to take it off, but a stain is a stain. It's not going to come off like that. So I tried to use a lip liner that was kind of like a brownish, kind of warm tone shade. It went wrong, okay? So I wiped that off. I put concealer over my lips and a little bit of foundation to kind of tone down the intensity because this is very pigmented. For a lip stain, this is intense. And then I put on top the lip gloss in Crescendo. So I think that this is helping to save the day. So I will say this lip is not my first choice when it comes to this type of eye look and color. Last thing is to do another mist of the Over Under Priming and Setting Spray. And that is it. That is the full face using Pretty Smart Cosmetics. What do you guys think? I actually found some things that I would be interested in trying again in the future. Let's start off with the products that were just okay. The lip stain, it's okay. The mascara, the Falsies, didn't give me the Falsies vibe, so I would say that's a pass. I wouldn't even recommend that you try it. I feel like there's other options around the same price point at the drugstore that do a lot more for the lashes. The other product that is kind of so-so for me is the concealer. It had good coverage, good blendability, and it looked really nice, but as it's been sitting on my skin for about 45 minutes at the moment, looking at my filming time here, I am starting to see that it's creasing and the darkness over on this side is starting to show a little bit more than this side, so I'm not too confident that this is going to wear well for the rest of the day. But I will have to say that I am impressed with the eyeshadows. They blended well and have a nice amount of pigmentation. They're not like ultra pigmented and metallic and out of this world. But if you're a beginner, this is great. If you want something simple for every day, again, this is great. And the price point, you really can't complain too much about the formula. The face palette, I love a good face palette, so this is a win for me. I do like that. I like especially how thin that setting powder was. It doesn't look like I even used powder on my face at all. I do have a little bit of a dewiness, which brings me to the foundation. I think it's because of the finish of this foundation. So I think I'm going to use less next time and maybe a little bit of a setting powder that's a little bit thicker just to keep it more satin to matte because that's my personal preference. The pore diffusing primer, I will have to kind of report back as this sits on my face and see what exactly happens using this with the spray. Did the spray do anything? The wear notes in the description box will let you know if any of this is actually holding on and wearing well. And the brow gel, I mean, this was, wow, I was not ready for it. So this for me is a win. Now that I know it's really pigmented, I'm going to tread softly and just go a little bit less next time. But this, I will use this again. Same for the eyeliner. I liked it. I feel like it was easy to apply. I had a lot of control with it, so no complaints there. The jury's still out on the primer whether or not it actually performs well. So again, those wear notes will let you know the end result at the end of the day. And then finally, the illuminating face drops, the gold ones. Yeah, I can use this again. I can see myself mixing this into other products. It definitely has that drunk elephant vibe to it with that kind of golden tone. So if you're looking for something like that, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, check these out. And that's it, you guys. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that I was able to give you some more information about this line, let you see all of their products in action. Hopefully this was enjoyable. If you liked any of the products, the description box is going to have everything listed and linked for you down below. Let me know your thoughts on today's look. Did you try this brand out already? If you did, what do you like? What are your thoughts about it? Let's chat about it in the comment section down below. Subscribe for more one brand videos in the future. And you can also follow me on Instagram. It's always here on the screen. I look forward to connecting with you there. Take care, you guys, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.